I always recommend having a look internally at, what problems can we solve within our business, whether that's for a customer or for our internal customers, which is our employees. As soon as you start solving those problems, whether it's, getting data on time, communication, whatever it is, you actually start making a bigger difference quickly because people notice that you've solved a particular problem and you know that it's something that will actually go towards something positive.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today we have a great guest from all the way down under. He is a QuickBooks Online Business Development Manager for Intuit Australia, where he helps bookkeepers and accountants adapt and thrive through using this disruptive age of technology that we're living in. He is an expert in cloud accounting software and assisting others by helping them save time, grow their business, improve their marketing, and attain that true freedom and work-life balance. Trent McLaren, welcome to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and looking forward to getting into some good discussion.
Yeah, well, listen, I wanted you on the podcast because I actually get a lot of the content that you put out, and it's very valuable on LinkedIn, and started following you, and so I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Good. I'm glad. It's all there to hopefully make a difference, which is, the reason I do what I do. So, good to hear that it reaches the Canadian part of the world. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we're living in. Speaking of that technology, disruptive technology. So tell us, let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and right up to arriving at your current place of Intuit.
Yeah, sure thing. So I have been working in the e-commerce space prior to working in the accounting industry, which was all about online payments and credit card processing. And through that, it gave me a really good chance to understand that whole world, which is only getting bigger and busier, especially I know in Australia, it's one of the fastest growing markets still. Everyone's getting websites and selling online, and that tiptoed my way into accounting software and how that all pieces together to make things, again, easier, quicker, faster. Why do it by hand if you can do it by machine or by computer or however it goes? But through that, I was working with all the major accounting providers in Australia whilst I was working in that e-commerce space. And then through that led me to my role as a senior business development manager for Intuit. And my goal and my role is really just to help empower other bookkeepers and accountants to know what I know, to adapt into this space as easy as possible, because we all know that it's really not easy to change our habits after 20 or 30 years of doing something a particular way. And then if you look at the last 5 years, it's been nothing but constant change, which has made it a lot harder for anyone to adjust into that. And then, so it's been a fun ride, that's for sure. It's taken me all over the world at the moment, which is amazing. I just had a small stint in Europe a couple of weeks ago speaking at a accountants conference over there on similar things, innovation, technology, and how we move through this phase and bring constant change in as part of our DNA as a bookkeeper and accountant.
Fantastic. I mean, that's exactly what we want to learn more about on this episode today is, how does one start to look at this? What's the big opportunity for them, and what should they be thinking about?
My motto with all these things is smarter, not harder, working smarter, not harder. And I think if we look at traditional ways of how we would go about doing our tasks day to day, whether it was bookkeeping related or just within our small business. There's other ways that we can now do this, whether it's automating it through different systems, integrating systems together so they're talking to each other. Even the way we talk and communicate with our customers is completely different to the way it was, 5 or 10 years ago. You've got live video, you've got Skype and Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, and we're going to have video conferencing and video meetings soon, and virtual conferences soon, if you've watched anything that the guys at Facebook are doing as well. So in terms of where to get started, I always recommend having a look internally at, what problems can we solve within our business, whether that's for a customer or for our internal customers, which is our employees. As soon as you start solving those problems, whether it's, getting data on time, communication, whatever it is, you actually start making a bigger difference quickly, because people notice that you've solved a particular problem and you know that it's something that will actually go towards something positive. The mistake I think a lot of people make is they start thinking up all these great ideas, like, let's just automate this and let's do that. But it actually doesn't have any real impact on anything within the business or within the customer, and therefore it becomes a waste of time, because we could have focused those efforts on things that were more important in the short term as opposed to the longer term.
So focusing on what they can do in terms of their own business and as well their customers' businesses from a technology standpoint, where do you see there being the barriers to the industry moving towards this type of technology?
A lot of it's education. A lot of it's knowing, where do I start? Where do I go to get this type of information from? Or who do I know that could actually help me with this sort of line of thinking? I find that most bookkeeping and accounting communities around the world are actually really supportive of each other. So you'll find that there's people that are already leading in this space that will be willing to, share their knowledge, come on shows like this and talk about their experience moving from one to the other. Conferences and events and everything I've seen on Facebook and Twitter in the last, couple of months with things like QuickBooks Connect, and you've got Accountex coming up as well in the US. You see a lot of these people coming together and they share all this knowledge with each other. In Australia, I talk a little bit more sometimes around, what the local education systems are doing to try and help implement this sort of stuff as well, because it's a new way of thinking and not something that's been rolled out across the curriculums, especially here. I can't imagine what it's like over there either, but generally what I find is it's all very similar no matter where you go. It's based on people that are leading from the front to teach others at the moment, and we're kind of seeing a little bit from software vendors, which is good. And then it's just trying to find, how do we scale that so that everyone can have the same access to the same learning?
Yeah, I think for me, what I see as being a challenge for our listeners is time. There's a lot of change. There's a lot out there. And these conferences, I think, like your recommendation, I think that is a really good piece of advice, is that you can get a lot of information and see a lot that's changing and how people are using things by simply going to one of these conferences and really investing your time and attention onto what's new and how other people are using it.
Yeah, completely agree. And spending time aside to actually implement it afterwards as well is the important part. And I hear it all the time. A lot of people talk to me about time. And I think one thing I'll always note with people is that it's a lot easier to make time than it is to find time, because finding time is impossible because we're so busy and we can fill it up so quickly, but it's something you actually have to make time for it to happen. So for me personally, I try to spend at least 10% of my time every week investigating and innovating into new things that I could be doing either for my partners or just trying to help other partners solve their problems, because I know they don't have the time for it at the moment. But I couldn't just have 10% of my time. It's that I prioritise and schedule that time in. So I always recommend people to, even if it's 1 or 2 hours a week, that you can schedule in. Maybe it's your Friday afternoon time, because that, generally towards the end of the week, we're getting a bit tired anyway, and it's, ramping out to the weekend. Spend that time investigating and looking into other things and practices that could actually become part of your business. Whether that's new applications, new solutions and systems that you can use to save more time and save more money.
It's a great piece of advice. Block some time and do some research and have fun with it, because it can be daunting, but there's a lot of fun in seeing what's happening and the new things that can actually help you and save you a lot of time and energy in the future. And it brings up another, I guess, question or challenge, which is people's frame of mind around cloud computing in this industry, in the bookkeeping industry. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it looked a certain way, and it's very different today. So talk a little bit about how things have moved from where they were 6 years ago to where they are. And I say 6, maybe it's 5 or 3, whatever you want to use there. But how things are really changing super fast, and the quality and the power of what's being done is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, 6, 7 years ago, or however long it was before cloud had hit the world, and it's come up in pockets 6, 7 years ago, but now it's getting to a point where it is slowly everywhere, especially within Canada, especially within Australia, the US. It's very, very, very prominent. It's changed a lot because we're not focused on doing manual data entry anymore. We're focused more so on how do we get the data into the system without actually having to do anything with, myself personally. So I think that means that our role needs to change from, if we start changing our thinking of, how do I do this without doing it myself? How do I do this by automating it? That then puts us on the right thought process to start looking into the right things. So whether that's looking for the right app or add-on that can automate that process, or whether it's actually investing in having great developer relationships, people that can do coding, so that you can actually build into open API structures, because it's all based on the triggers. As soon as you figure out, and this is something I really think will start to happen over the next 2 years, is that people will move beyond just buying cloud accounting off the shelf, which is all we do at the moment, and we use all the automation within the cloud accounting, but because of the nature of the platforms that they are all open API and they've got, millions of triggers within that product, people will start to figure out different triggers and recipes that they want to put together for their small business clients that isn't really possible within an apps or an add-on space. So what I'm really saying is that this will become more technical and more digital focused, because we're trying to figure out how do we really leverage it more. We bought the car, but how do we now soup that car up and give it to a high performance rating, as opposed to it just being a standard car like every other car that's on the lot? So it's becoming that digital mechanic for the accounting system. And that really, for a lot of bookkeepers, can be quite scary, because if they've been doing this for 20 years, 25 years, or however long, you didn't get into bookkeeping to become a digital mechanic, that's for sure. So it's definitely a change of skill set, and I believe it's probably more along what kind of partnerships can you forge with those kind of people to make that happen. And a lot of people are going to be in different spaces. They, within the next 5 years, they may be retiring, so it may not matter at all. They're like, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and we'll ride this wave out. But for other people that are newer on their journey or midway through their journey, these are the kinds of things they need to start contemplating, is what kind of bookkeeper do we want to be in the next 5 or 10 years? Because if they try to keep doing it the way they're doing it, they will get left behind, because there will be people that will forge ahead and start looking at, again, new innovative ways to manipulate the accounting systems so that they just get all this data in and start automating and doing things faster, quicker, cheaper, more effectively, more efficiently.
That's right. You're absolutely right, and it's a great place to go, because what happens is now that investment of resources can be put into things that are much higher on the value chain. So,
correct.
The data entry, making sure that it's all accurate. And today, they still need, you can have computers do things, but you always need somebody to, at this stage, check checks and balances, make sure it's all going in the right place. But that's kind of like saying, do we want to spend our time making sure things are done right, or do we want to spend our time knowing that they're right and then using that information to help make better business decisions, grow faster, have more peace of mind, whatever it is that's important to the business owners? That's the real sweet spot, I think, for the next 5 to 10 years, is transitioning to, okay, we've got this data, we have lots of great tools and technology to help us do our job better and more efficiently. How do we position to our owners that now we we have more value that we can give them.
Yeah, correct. And that's exactly where, it's just shifting from calling ourselves or, being known as bookkeepers as data entry to, that trusted, valued advisor, being able to give the right advice, being able to interpret the data that's come out of the machine and then say, hey, I can see that if you adjust a few things here, you could actually be making a lot more money over the next 3 to 6 months. And they're the types of conversations that really, are best had with the person that spends the most time in the data. So it's not saying that we're going to take our eyes off what's going on in that small business and that we just set it on autopilot. It's more that we're letting the systems do the manual labor so that we can get in there and actually articulate and analyze all the data to then interpret it, break it down and present it to the small business owner so that they can make the best decisions of how to, move forward, progress and keep growing and scaling their business or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve.
It's fantastic. So let's move into another conversation around technology, but in a different area, more specific area, which is practice management. And you've written a lot about this. There's a lot of disruption to come in practice management. Can you be a little bit more specific and share with the listeners what you see coming?
Most definitely. Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about practice management at the moment. I think it's just the season that we're in here in Australia as well. But practice management is the next thing I believe that will get fully disrupted by technology. And I think, again, if we look at how this happened with desktop and accounting, we had our desktop products, but we'd been doing it the same way for such quite a long time. But now we're starting to see these applications coming out of nowhere that are really challenging what is normal for a practice management system. So we're moving away from desktop legacy-based systems. And for some reason, it's still quite normal for a lot of people. They're like, oh, yeah, that's okay. We don't mind if it's still in a desktop legacy space, because they don't actually realise the benefits and the gains that they'll get by having a true cloud practice management system. Now, across the world, there's a couple of really good ones out there at the moment, whether it's something like Carbon, Karbon, or the guys at Pascal Workflow. I've seen theirs, looks really cool. And then you've got Jetpack Workflow as well. Mm-hmm. They're the three that I've really sort of kept an eye on at the moment, because they plug into a variety of different accounting systems as well. So they're great little systems that'll work across a variety of systems. So if you've got, QuickBooks and then a couple of other systems in place, it'll work across the board. So you're not having to worry about these practice management systems only working with one type of software. And that's been the problem, I think, with desktop systems, is that there's only efficiencies in place if you're using one particular version or one particular branded product. And because of that, it means that as we start to bring in all these cloud systems, we start having to manually crunch the data and bring in the trial balances. And I was chatting with a few different accounting firms yesterday. It takes half a day to get the data from QuickBooks into their legacy-based accounting system. But then I start talking about, how do we move this into the cloud, or how do we streamline this with a variety of different apps and add-ons? And then it's becoming a minutes thing, not a 4.5 hour thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. And I know that this is a big problem for a lot of the people we work with, is choosing the CRM, the time management, the tracking of what's, the documents, all of that. So you've given us 3 options for people to take a look at. What's your recommendation around people that want to move into a cloud-based practice management tool, but you've given us 3 options. So how do they choose? How do they make those decisions? Because there's time involved in actually evaluating, and then there's also a ton of time involved in implementing. And I was just speaking with someone yesterday that spent like a year implementing on one of them, and it's just not working for her. So she's now got to go and find something else. It's a big problem.
Huge problem, yeah. And it's such a big system, like big piece of a firm or a business's practice as well. So I think the first thing, you've got to do your research, but you've got to really understand what's the most important thing for me and my business. What do we need to be able to still achieve when we move into a new system? Because you could move into a new system that has all these bells and whistles and it's in the cloud and it's fast and you've got all these other features that you'd never had before. But if you're still not delivering on the core things that you need in your business, and everyone's got a different process, right? Everyone's got different key deliverables. That's the biggest thing I'll point out. No one has a really systemized, every country doesn't have a systemized way in which we all do things the same, is the big thing I find. So that means that every different firm, accounting firm I work with, they've all got their own different process on how they want to do something. So there's no point kind of going out and saying, hey, how do you do this? Because you're both going to have differences in your firm. So you've really got to understand what are the key things we need to be able to achieve still when we move to the new system, and then start researching that with these practice management systems. If you've got a big enough team, I'd recommend, give that project to one person to research and own end to end, and then they can then present and bring that to you if you don't have the time, if you're the owner in your business. Otherwise, if you do have the time, this comes back to what I said before, 2 to 3 hours every Friday researching and analysing what's going on. Maybe that's a demo of the product with the providers that you want to look at. As I said, check out the 3 that I've mentioned. They're all quite good and doing a lot of really cool stuff in that space. But then as you've understood what they do, does that match against what your needs are? If it doesn't, then, maybe it's not the right product for you. And then if you find they all don't fit, then maybe you need to analyse what is it that we're doing that's holding us back, and how are other people getting around this? Because if other people are around it and they're using it and they're doing it great, this comes back to what I said before, because we don't all systemise our structure and processes and we all do it differently, it could actually be worth analysing, well, why are we doing it this way? And if other people are getting different efficiency gains, that comes into our own process improvement and structural changes.
It's great advice, and it just has me thinking. What I'll do is we have a private Facebook group called The Successful Bookkeeper, and for the listeners, if you want to go there and request to join that, it's completely free. But what we'll do is we'll start a conversation with our community on technology and practice management, and I'll invite you as well, Trent, to come and give some feedback and thoughts and ideas, and you can share products that you're seeing as you go, because I think a big win for people is to just ask, what are other people doing? What's working for them? You've given us 3 great potential applications that could be valuable. There's probably hundreds of them out there if we looked really hard. You've narrowed it down to 3 good ones. That's just saved everybody a ton of time. And there's probably other people out there that can share their experience with those specific products as well. So invite everybody to go and join the Successful Bookkeeper group on Facebook, and that'll be a great forum for everyone to share what's working and not working.
Fantastic.
This is great, Trent. Let's talk a little bit about what's the things that are coming from Intuit that we should be excited about and looking for and doing more research, and as well share any links or places that you think our listeners, bookkeepers, can be going and doing more research on what your offerings are.
Yeah, of course, definitely. So, across the board, if anyone was at QB Connect, they would have seen a lot of really good content from a variety of different speakers. But if I specifically narrow it down, there was a session Suzanne Guzari presented. I think it was on day 2. I was watching all of it from Twitter, by the way, so my timing on when things happen will be a bit off. But Suzanne was on stage talking about what's coming and what's next in the product. And for us, there was a few things we noted on, but the first one I'll probably touch on is the deeper integrations that we are starting to now build out with some of our chosen app partners. And when we look at our chosen app partners, it really is based on volume of users. Who are the partners that have got a lot of customers integrated with QuickBooks Online on that particular product? In this example, it was Bill.com and T-Sheets, 2 very awesome application and businesses that we work really closely with. And what you'll be able to see, and this is largely due to a lot of the awesome work we've been doing on our infrastructure for the last couple of years, and then we've been rebuilding it, because you've got to think we've been around for 32 years. So we had a few older code bases, but now through being able to restructure and rebuild the code base to make it a new, streamlined new code base, it means that we can have bigger integrations and bigger advantages for our users now. And this is something that we can do that some of the other platforms can't do at the moment, which is also why it's quite exciting. So deeper integrations, meaning that with T-Sheets and Bill.com, when that integration is live, you won't actually need to leave QuickBooks to approve your time from T-Sheets coming in. So you don't have to jump between products. So when we start looking at deeper integrations, the main goal is how do we improve customer experience and really change that around to make it a really more delightful process. And I think the biggest thing we found is that when you're dealing in cloud accounting, you're plugging in things from everywhere. You're having to jump into different products all the time to try and update settings or approve things or whatever it may be. So what you'll see is that with our deep integrations, and in Australia, we do this really well with our payroll product. We partner with a company called KeyPay in Australia, and that payroll product sits embedded within QuickBooks Online. So when you click on the Employees tab, you're still within the payroll solution, but you've now got this really advanced payroll system already running, operating fully in the cloud. So this is something we've been doing for quite a long time, but this was something we now showcased with T-Sheets and Bill.com, and that'll be something that'll roll out across in all the different countries as it happens. So that was really exciting because, as I said, it's time-saving. Customer experience is a lot higher than, it'll be improved than it was before, and it just makes things extremely easy. The second thing that I'll note that I was most excited about, and I'd seen a little video on this before QB Connect as well, but I was excited that we announced it to the world. There was a video that we showcased on artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence reality. And if anyone was familiar, it was about a girl that was sitting in the back of a Tesla vehicle, and she had a Lyft driver or an Uber driver if you're not familiar with Lyft. And essentially she starts talking to her phone, and QB was the name of the artificial intelligence bot built into the product in that scenario. And essentially it just starts showcasing conversation between herself and QB, her AI, about her business. She's saying, hey, I've just won this customer. Can you create an invoice for thousands of dollars? Can you set the schedule and send it to the driver, put it in their calendar? Can you then tell me how much money or margin I can make on that product? QB is talking back and interacting with the lady the whole time. But it gets to a point where QB starts saying, well, hey, if you want to improve your margin, have you thought about changing the supplies for the recipe that you're making for the bread? So, what you could do is if you change supplier, you'll gain 20% of your margin back, except you'll have to pay up front. Because you've got to pay up front, you can't afford that, so you may need a line of credit or you might need a loan. Here's 3 different options. It's quite amazing, right? Like it's just
remarkable.
It's crazy. And this is to my point before, where are we headed next? Like that's exactly where it's headed. And that'll get to a point where that artificial intelligence, we're not just talking about small business finances anymore. We're talking about small business operations. It's talking about, can you organize something to happen here and make sure that other person's calendar and schedule is fully up to date? So I envision it, if anyone is an Iron Man or an Avengers fan, I can imagine it being something like Jarvis, which is Iron Man's artificial intelligence person, just being able to talk to that person who knows everything about your business, who can start making things happen for you within the system, and you're just having that intelligent, communicative conversation and being able to share that data with, again, your accountant, your advisor, your bookkeeper. That was part I probably didn't mention at the end of that story. When she starts looking at the different options for finance and credit, she says, hey, can you send that to my accountant? Can you send that to my bookkeeper to review? The bookkeeper then responds 10 seconds later with a little video saying, hey, this is what you need to do. That's the best option I'm recommending. And then QB then says, hey, yep, got it. I'll do that. I'll put it into place for you. So this is more so what I was saying, I think, at the start of the podcast, is that how do we do things without doing it ourselves? And that's where the technology's headed. That's where, that's in the next maybe 2 years. So, within 5 years, what does that look like? Within 10 years, or I can't imagine what that looks like, because with all the technology and the releases we've had so far, I've read a lot of articles lately suggesting that within the next 2 years, we're going to see more innovations in the technology than we've seen in the last 10. So that's crazy.
It is crazy. It's exponentially changing, which is remarkable and daunting. And I'm sure listening to you, I'm a lover of technology, and everything you're saying I'm totally getting. But I know our audience right now is cringing and literally walking to the door and locking their door and looking out the window, because it can be extremely daunting. But my request is take a deep breath. It's all good. We're all human beings, and there will be a place for all of us in this new world. That's right.
Correct. I completely agree. And for those people, if you've heard any of this and just thought, wow, this is really different, that's okay. It is different and you won't be alone. There's a lot of people that were in the same boat when we jumped into cloud accounting, like, you know what? This isn't for me, or this is, how can I possibly do this? And this comes back to what I said before about having engaged communities that help each other move through the process. Our roles will change regardless. It wouldn't matter if it was this industry or when we started bringing robots into car manufacturing factories, our roles changed. Things changed about how we did things. I think in the next 10 to 15 years or 20 years' time, 47% of the jobs that we have today will be haven't even been invented yet. You know, there's going to be 47% new jobs out there in the world that have only been created through the new technologies that we're about to develop. So regardless of which way you look at it, my advice is don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of, like, this is really different, because everything around you is going to be different regardless for the next 20 years, no matter what, whether it's this industry or any other industry. So the best thing we can do is learn, how do we get good at change? How do we bring change and adopt change into who we are as people? Because we're about to see a heck of a lot of it in the world, regardless of what we're talking about today. So we can get really good at it, or we can sit back and watch it happen. There's two ways you can go.
I love it. I love it. I love what Intuit's doing with their conferences and their education tracks, and you're really supporting the community in embracing this technology, and it's smart business. It's smart business for everyone. So this has been great. Trent, we're going to have some links. I'd ask actually that whole story and video, if you could send Dave the link to that. I'd love to post it on our website so people could have a look at it. I don't know if it's still available, but that would be something for the listener to go and check out. We'll have all the links that Trent has been speaking about as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was live streamed on Facebook, so that's the only way I know I can talk about it these days, because they were, you know, it was live streamed anyway. So I'll send the link. Yeah, I'll send the link through and we'll go from there. But thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk about. I love talking about all this stuff, if you can tell. So it's great to be here and being able to share it with, you know, people around the world. That's what it's all about.
Well, thank you. It's very generous of you, and we'll look to have you back when new changes are coming in the new year.
Amazing. Thanks, Michael.
You bet. That wraps another episode. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to learn more about our guest today, you can find everything in the show notes at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Please subscribe to iTunes. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.